You're listening to the Vendor's Daughter podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Calderon, also known as the Vendor's Daughter. I started this podcast about 7 years into working at my family's business. At the time, and really ever since, I've been geeking out on two main topics: self-improvement and business growth and development. I firmly believe that the healthier we are, both mentally and physically, the better we show up for ourselves, our lives, and our businesses. So, on the show, we talk a lot about things like a positive mindset, why what you eat matters, why it's important to move your body, and how a gratitude practice can change your life. And because growing a business is my favorite topic ever, we also interview entrepreneurs from various fields so that they can share how they grew their business, which means along the way, we'll also talk about things like email list, growing an Instagram, and knowing when it's time to hire your next employee. You guys, the only thing I might like to talk about more than business is coffee. I love coffee. So grab a fresh cup and listen in as we deep dive into all the things. Awesome. Wes, thank you so much for being on the show today. For anyone listening or watching out there, would you mind introducing yourself and telling them a little bit about the Sales Whisperer?
The Sales Whisperer is me. I got out of the Air Force in 1997. I was married, and we had an infant son and another one on the way that we didn't know about. And I jumped right into commission sales. And I've been in finance. I've been in retail. Spent a decade in high tech, and started laying the groundwork. I signed up for a 12-week teleclass back in 2006. So there was no Facebook, there was no video, there was no Zoom. It was a PDF and 12 calls. And I hit it off with that guy, changed my life. I'd made $100,000 a year, at least in sales, since 1998. So, I was 8 years into that. And so I was quote unquote successful, but I was hungry, right? I knew I was working harder than I should. So I was always trying to get better. I paid for this class out of my own pocket. My company wouldn't pay for it. I ended up hiring this guy as my sales mentor, became a licensee of his, and I laid the groundwork. I bought the URL, the Sales Whisperer, in September of 2006, trademarked it a couple years later, and I've been doing that ever since.
Gosh, I love it. I love that you were making 100,000 back in 1998. Not to be like, wow, it was a long time ago, but that's kind of a long time
It was a
ago.
long
So
time ago. I mean,
yeah,
you look at inflation, right? That's $145,000
wow.
today. Well, new inflation numbers, right? I need to go look it up. Probably
I would say I think it'd be
$150,000.
even more. Yeah, that's crazy. So what's your secret then? What's the trademark behind the Sales Whisperer? How were you successful then, and how have you been successful all of these years into it?
I was successful early on for a couple of reasons. And early on, I was in retail. I was selling mobile homes, right? On a lot, right? Drive by, see those mobile homes. I mean, I was working, um, and we had a system, and that company was proven, and I followed their system. Right? Too many salespeople and entrepreneurs, they want to get creative. I want to express myself. You know what? Go make some money, right? Go make some money. Then you can express yourself. They get too creative, and I think uh, deep down, I think people are more afraid of success than failure,
Ooh.
and so they tinker with things and they break what isn't broken so they can go fix it, and they can say, "See, I fixed this." I'm like, you didn't have to. You ever see the movie Tin Cup with Kevin Costner?
I didn't. What is it about?
Uh, so he's a golfer, right? And he's a great golfer, but he's impetuous and hard headed. And Don Johnson is the pretty boy, the arch nemesis who did everything right. And he's a famous golfer. And Kevin Costner is out in West Texas, at a sandy driving range, barely making ends meet. And of course the love interest comes in, right? So they're fighting for her. And so Kevin Costner's like, I'm gonna compete and make the US Open. And so on his qualifying round, he gets irritated with his caddy, who's Cheech and Chong, right? So
Yeah.
Cheech Marin, I think, was his caddy. And Kevin Costner's like, no, I want to hit my 7-iron or whatever. He's like, no, hit this other. So he's like, well, you know what? I don't like this one. Snaps. And he breaks every single club in his bag, and he plays the entire back nine with his 7-iron, right? And he sees Don Johnson at the end. And he's like, I parred the back nine with just my 7-iron. So he's thinking he's going to impress Don Johnson, right? And it
Yeah.
is an impressive feat if you know golf, right? I mean, it's crazy. You've got to be so talented. But Don Johnson said, why?
Mm.
Right? Too many entrepreneurs, it's like, why are you making this so hard?
Yeah.
Right? I had a proven system. I had to make money. I had to put food on the table. I was unemployed when my second son was born. It's like, I had to make money. Right? I'm like, I will follow your system. If you tell me this system is proven, I will follow the system. And sure enough, I made $100,000 my first year in Mobile, Alabama, selling trailers.
Wow.
Okay, 1998. So I worked the system. I showed up early. I stayed late. It was a lot of hours, and that kind of laid the foundation. I knew I could work, and I was good with people just naturally. I hadn't had any sales training. I had military training, right? So I understood communication, understood leadership, understood how to get inside somebody's head to get them to do what you want them to do from a leadership standpoint. But I can't force a prospect to buy from me,
Yeah.
right? I can't yell at them. But I had that discipline to stay after it and work the system, and it made all the difference.
Gosh, I love that. I'm definitely guilty of that wanting to just be creative person. I'm like, oh, let's just like try this. Or I hear something on a podcast. I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. Or I'm very shiny penny oriented, which working in therapy on that now. So, we'll see where that goes. But um, why do you think people are afraid of success? You said you think people are more afraid of success than failure.
Because it's comfortable to be in the shadows.
Hmm.
Okay, look at the president. Look at LeBron James. I mean, look at George Clooney. They can't go anywhere and
Yeah.
not be seen and hounded, and truth be told, like if I would rather be like the sports agent than the athlete, right?
Hmm.
You run in the same circles, make just about the same money, but you can go outside in a ball cap and a t-shirt and nobody worry about it. Michael
Right.
Jordan always said, he always was dressed up, and he said, this may be the only time I ever meet this fan, right? And I want to make a good impression.
Hmm.
And so when it, it's not that hard to make it to the top, it's hard to stay there,
Yeah.
right? It's hard to repeat. You look at Tom Brady, you look at Michael Jordan. I mean, 6 championships. With the Bulls, and Tom Brady, what he's done. It's like we hold them in such high regard because they were able to maintain it, right? Not a one hit wonder. And so that effort, not everybody's willing to put forth that effort. I always say success takes daily effort, hourly effort. But one good excuse, you can live in obscurity forever,
Oh.
right? Oh, my parents were divorced. No wonder. Oh, my dad was an alcoholic. No wonder. Oh, I'm divorced. No. Oh, I lost my home in the 2008 crash. I was swindled. Oh, no wonder. Okay, give me your excuse, right? Give me your excuse, and I'll find you 100 people that have used that as their reason to move forward. All right,
Mm.
so uh, but it's entropy, right? Thermodynamics. The universe is expanding and dwindling to nothing. If you leave anything to its own, it will. Look at your house. If you don't touch it, it will slowly erode and break and crack and go to nothing. It takes effort to maintain and to build, and most people don't want to put forth that much effort for that long.
Yeah. No, that's real. I know one of the things I've listened to you on a few other podcasts at this point and on your own, but one of the things you were talking about is not just making the big sell, but making every sell.
Yep.
Is that something you could kind of dig into and explain a little bit more? Because I feel like that is probably one of the keys to your long-term success and proof of that daily effort.
Yeah. Well, I say to make any sale, you must make every sale. People are like, you make every single sale, you close everybody. I'm like, you're not listening. So to make any sale, you must make every sale. So are you married or dating anybody?
I am married, and I love where you're going with this.
Okay. And
So,
I tell that story, right? Well, I met my wife at a country bar right here in Southern California. Okay. And the first time you met your husband to be, right, he conducted himself a certain way. How he approached you mattered.
yeah.
Okay. Did he come from behind and grab your shoulder and spin you around? Did he cut in front of you in line, or did he approach you nice with a smile? Not too big of a smile, not too small of a smile. How he shook your hand mattered. Each of those are a sale. What he was wearing was a sale. Okay. Every step along the way. And there are processes in everything. And you can skip one or two steps in most scenarios and be okay. If you skip more than two, you're probably going to get in trouble. The bases must be covered. You got to touch every base. Okay. And so, in sales, if my ultimate goal is to have you become a customer and give me your money, then how my website looks, how does it load? How does it look on mobile? What's my social media profile look like? How do my emails read and sound? How do I conduct a demo? Am I high pressure? Do I answer questions? Each of those are little sales. Okay. So to make any sale, you must make every sale. Everything matters. They're sizing you up. They're looking at your logo. Do images not load? I mean, everything, is it easy to get a quote from you? Are you hesitant to give me answers when I start to talk about availability or compatibility or warranties or service? All those things matter. So, um, I always say small hinges swing big doors.
That's good.
You don't realize the impact of the little things. I just interviewed a guy. He was referred to me, and he makes fun of his own name, so we can pick on him too. His name is Ben Gay. Ben Gay the third. He's almost 80 years old.
Oh, wow.
Uh, Napoleon Hill was his personal mentor for 2 years. Okay, this guy Zig Ziglar worked for Ben.
Wow.
So I just had him after 538, 536 episodes. Forget, he's the first guy ever that not only I've had guests on multiple times, but usually a year or two apart. Uh,
Mhm.
he and I spoke for over an hour, 2 weeks in a row.
Wow.
So I'm going to publish that early. But we talked about the small hinges swinging big doors, and he talked about he's still in sales to this very day, almost 80 years old. He's still making sales calls, but he had a call center, and he was still making calls, and this was 40 years ago, and they had maybe not that long, 30 years ago, but they had a package, right? Zig Ziglar and those kind of conferences, you get the CD, the DVD, the cassette, the ultimate package, and you
Wow.
list everything. Oh, bought separately, this is $199, this is $199, but but all together it's $1,400, but now today, this time only, it's only $499. But as he was listing the prices, he said the guy on the phone just went, that was it, right? Just a huh. And he kept on going. And then the guy said no.
Hmm.
And it bugged him. And he thought about it. He said, I sent everybody home like 3 hours early. He said, I didn't want them listening to me restructuring the presentation. And he made some call. He reordered the pricing. He didn't, the guy turned himself off to the offer, closed himself down because he thought that he said, well, if one is $199, then that's a lot of money. Then this whole thing's gonna be way too much. Never mind. So he restructured how we offered the pricing, and he said they were already making a killing, and he boosted sales 15 to 20% overnight by
Wow.
restructuring the order of delivering the price because he picked up on right? So I say that, small hinges swing big doors. Are you paying attention? Are you listening to the prospect? because people are always looking at these huge things, and it's like, I can't show you how to increase sales 30% overnight, but I can show you 30 ways to increase sales 1%,
Interesting.
right? And those things start to compound. But people, they don't want to do the little things. They look for the big things. And yeah, sometimes that big thing works, but usually it's not lasting, right? And if you remember back in the day, I mean, you could keyword stuff a page,
Right.
and in the late 90s for sure, that was the deal, right? Google didn't really exist. Netscape and whatever what else was back there, I already forget. You know, they would people would, if they saw a word real estate, a bunch of times, then it was just pure word count. And they go, oh, well, this is the number one page. So
Right.
they would put a little bit of content, and then like in small font, white font on white background, just put the word real estate, real estate, real estate, best realtor, best real estate, fantastic real estate, 100 or 1,000 times, right? It was keyword stuffing. And yes, you would spring to the top if you would keyword stuff, and that worked for a little while. And then you were blacklisted, and you could never get listed ever again unless
Mm.
you've created a fake identity, right? So it worked for a little bit, and then it's negative. So um, just don't take the shortcuts, right? Look for the little things. Always be looking, to make any sale. You must make every sale. You got to be willing to break apart everything you're doing all the time to find the little things that'll make a big difference.
So interesting. And in that particular reference, where the guy just said, and then got off the phone call, would it be appropriate to ask that prospect like why they didn't want to move forward, or do you just respect the no and move on?
You, for sure, you can ask. The problem is once somebody makes up their mind, it's hard
Hmm.
to get them to change.
Yeah.
Okay, and people really don't change their minds. They'll come to a new understanding based on new information, but they have to be open to hearing and learning that information. And people don't really want to admit that something's too expensive. It sounds like they're cheap, or maybe they just can't afford it,
Yeah.
and they don't want to talk about it. And so, how can you get the truth out of that prospect? Because the reality is, as soon as he heard that 199, he goes, he probably stopped listening.
Yeah.
He's just holding the phone to his hand, this 30 years ago or so, at least, right? So no mobile phones, and probably on the desk phone, corded. You remember those? You
I
remember
remember this.
those? So he
We
probably just
used to
starts
fight over
shuffling.
about it.
Yeah, he probably starts shuffling papers, and then he just waiting for the ending. Yeah, never mind. And so you can't even build the case because they weren't listening.
Yeah.
So, but for sure, you can ask that, and but people, they don't want to be closed.
Hmm.
If you start saying, well, it's the price, and you're going to get, the alternative of choice clothes, and well, what is your future worth? How else would you spend that money? I mean, $199. I mean, you blow $199 at dinner, and this is an investment in your future. You do care about your future, right? And all these stupid, hard closed, idiotic things, and so you just go, no, not right now, and you
Yeah.
get off the phone.
I've heard it said people love to buy, but they hate to be sold to. Like,
Exactly.
but we don't. I mean, I guess cold calling is still a thing, but for the most part, I would say the way of getting prospects is usually through websites now, or doing the free download, or getting them into your sales funnel, or those type of things. Would you agree with that, or do you think that it's still a lot of phone calls?
Depends on the business. If you're selling B2B, the phone is really what works.
Really
Oh, yeah. And
interesting.
I've had countless people, especially since COVID, right? I've had a lot of sales trainers on, Jeffrey Gittimer, Jeb Blunt, I mean, you name it. Um, and the phone still works. Because in B2B, if you think about it, like one of my last jobs was I was in high tech. We were selling a new kind of computer system to hospitals and financial services. So I focused a lot on hospitals. So I would deal with the chief information officer, right, the CIO of a big hospital. Um, that person, that guy, that gal, they're not hanging out on the web looking for a PDF on, you know, top 5 ways to increase uptime in your emergency room,
Yeah, that's real.
right? I've got a call, hey, can I, speak to Joe Smith? Is he expecting your call? Right? How do I handle that? Well,
Yeah,
this call is regarding, right? Can I put you through to his voicemail? Okay, what do I do there? How do I handle that? Hey, well, let me ask you something. Are you as an assistant? Who else, who would be in charge of this? Do I have a script and start to build a hierarchy? No, well, you wouldn't talk to Joe first. This seems like it's in the server side. Let me put you in touch with the director of IT. Oh, who's that? Well, that's Amy Smith. Okay, so now I can start to infiltrate, right?
interesting.
And build that rapport. And in today's day and age, there's truly no more cold calling.
Yeah,
If in I can find out in 5 minutes a whole lot about you.
that's true.
Okay, where'd you go to school? Most people have a LinkedIn profile. You have some references. You probably have some charities, things that you support, where you went to college. Did you not go to college? What certificates do you hold? Where have you lived and worked? I can find something about you that makes this, yes, you're not expecting my call. So in that sense, it's a cold call, but it's not some ice cold random throw darts at the wall, right? At that point, I had dozens of hospital clients, and my company had hundreds of healthcare examples that we could point to where it was an overwhelming ROI to use our technology. So by referencing that and name dropping, and I could pique their interest, and begin to move that sale forward. But yeah, in B2B, if you're selling high ticket items, to the C-suite, they're not going to attend a webinar. They don't want some hour-long Zoom. Cut to the chase. I mean, that big people can authorize big purchases in a 5-minute conversation and just give a verbal, okay, let's do it.
Gosh, that's so good. I live so much in the podcast self-help, like personal coach space. And so no one talks about just making the call. And it's not a cold call. You do your research. It's much more what you're talking about seems much more like go get them, like taking control instead of passive hoping someone jumps onto a webinar. And I never once really thought about C-suite guys aren't just like, oh yeah, let me jump on this
Yeah,
minute free call.
they're
Like,
not hopping on, and neither one's wrong, right? If selling one to many is fantastic, but if somebody is new starting out, um, it's hard to do.
yeah,
Your website, your funnel, your technology, you got to get your pitch deck. Is it good? Is it proven? How do you know? How do you run ads? You got to boost your posts, blah, blah, blah. Where are these people hanging out? Can you get them through TikTok? Do you need Snapchat? Can you just boost a post on your Facebook page? Is it a page or is it a group? Is it a free group or a paid group? Is it a public group or a private group? I mean, all these things is like, what ratio do I need on my Instagram? And should I do a story and then share this to a tweet and do a snapshot and share the tweet as an Instagram? Like,
yeah.
oh, good grief. Oh, and heaven forbid, let's not forget email and text messaging. I mean, that's a lot.
It is a lot. It is very overwhelming. And then you're
People make
just
it sound like it's so simple,
mhm.
but it's not. Okay. So what do you do? I mean, can you pick up the phone and can you call somebody? Can you work your circle of influence? Do you have 10 or 20 or 50 people that would take your call? Maybe they're not an ideal prospect, but they probably know an ideal prospect. So
Mm,
can they turn you on to them? Now you got some referrals. Now you make some income. Now you can use that money and build that funnel and build that webinar. And yes, then go wide, then have 1 million people on your webinar and be the next Tony Robbins. But you got to grind it out, right? We forget. We look at Gary Vaynerchuk and see his huge success, but he'd tell you right straight up. He spent 10, 15 years selling,
yeah.
right? Working, walking the floor, mopping the floor in his family's wine and liquor store. He sold face to face, belly button to belly button, and he mastered his craft. Then he used technology. He was at the right point at the right time, and boom, Wine Library TV, and it took off. but it was sales. It was one-on-one sales where he mastered the skill. Now it's easy to apply one to many.
Right.
Okay. So, but even if you're doing group things, people opt in. You better get good at text messaging, at Facebook messaging. You can sell big ticket items without ever getting on the phone.
Just
Okay.
through those social platforms.
Well, email, texting,
Hmm.
uh, and Facebook Messenger, or whatever messaging, whatever platform that you're on. Uh, People don't really want to hop on a call.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to your analogy, like more in the B2C or the self help and that kind of world, some some will eventually have to get on the phone to finally be pushed over the edge. I've got a system, a company that I'm working with. It's a $5,500 3-day event, leads into a $12,000 mastermind. But everything is done social media, but it's high dollars. It's tens of thousands of dollars a month in advertising, and it's only about a third really qualify and can buy, despite years of doing this. But the calls, those that buy, it's after watching a 40 or 50-minute documentary, going through all the stuff. Yeah, they'll buy in 10 or 15 minutes on a $5,500 package. But there's a lot of prep work that was done to make any sale. You must make every sale. Most of these people have seen the stuff for weeks or months, even, then finally take the step. So all the stuff before the call, what are you doing? Um, there's a lot that goes into this. So you need to understand who you're selling to, what are their fears and concerns, what are their desires, and make sure you're speaking to all of that. And the quickest way to learn is to speak to somebody, you know, talk to some people, hear that, huh? Because if you're doing all this digitally, you won't hear that, huh, on a call to let you
That's
know something needs to be adjusted, So
so real. Gosh, you're inspiring me to just pick up the phone call or just pick up the phone because I feel like it's more intimidating to me to like pick up the call or pick up the phone. It's easy to hide behind an email and it's like, oh, if they don't answer it, they don't answer
because
it.
we take it personally,
Yeah.
right? And you shouldn't. They're not saying no to you. They're not saying, "Oh, you're a bad person." Oh, and you have bad style, and I don't like your hair, your office, and your how you dress. You're just a terrible person. They're not saying that. They're saying no to your offer right now. If I said, "Hey, I'm cooking up some hamburgers. You want some?" You go, "No, I just ate." I'm not offended. Okay, more for me, right? I mean, they're not. It's not an indication. It's not a judgment on you. It's just,
Right.
I'm not ready for what you're offering right now. Okay. So don't take it personally and just go to the next. Um,
That's so real. I heard it said recently to like issue an invitation. Like if you're having a party and you're inviting people, just invite somebody to the party. And if they want to come, cool. And if not, whatever. Like you're still gonna have a party, you're still doing your thing, you're still you. It doesn't reflect on you. Maybe they're busy, maybe it's not the right time.
yeah. Because
But
we're
like
needy. Like, I need this big person to come to validate me having a party. It'll show that I'm worthy and I'm somebody and I
yeah,
could be on page 6, of the New York Times, whatever, that magazine. I don't know. But no, say, hey, I'm having a party. It may be
right.
just me, but hey, you're invited. But whether you come or not, I'm throwing this party. Right. And it seems like semantics, but it's not. It's important to your psyche. And ultimately, that's what I do with salespeople is keep them in the fight,
Hmm.
because it is a fight. And I learned this in the military, and it was profound, because you think, oh, the purpose of war is just to destroy the enemy, decimate them, wipe them off the face of the earth. And it's not. The purpose of war is to take away your enemy's will to fight.
Hmm.
Okay. You want them to just tap out. Like you look at UFC, they don't kill the opponent. They don't break every bone in their body. They just want to hug them tightly until they stop fighting. And
It's
then okay,
lovely.
we can be friends, right? So so I want you as the salesperson, right, to stay in the fight.
Hmm.
I want you to maintain the will to fight. And so what is it that you have to do? How do you protect yourself? What is your process? how do you stack the odds in your favor? And there's a lot of things that can and should be done. And most people aren't doing them. That's why there's turnover. That's why there's stress. That's why they're frustrated. They're not doing the right things. And so too many of them, trial and error, they bang their head, throw enough crap against the wall, something's bound to stick. Okay, yes. But I try to shorten that learning curve. I've got the scars. Let me help you get some success without all the pain that I endured.
I love that. Well, I think that seems like a really great place to end. So for anybody who wants to work with you, who's looking to shorten that pain for themselves, how would they get in contact with you? Where's the best place? Where do you hang out?
I'm all over the web. Just go to thesaleswhisperer.com. Start looking around. If you want, the tool that changed my life was having an agenda. So 2006, I learned this through Steve, through that 12-week class. Go to thesalesagenda.com. Okay, and it'll take you to a landing page on the Sales Whisperer, but thesalesagenda.com, it's free. It's a video, it's a PDF, and you can edit it. You're allowed to copy it, modify it. But if you follow that type of agenda with your bigger sales, with your bigger prospects, you'll take control of the conversation. Because, they talk about how people are afraid of public speaking, right? But the reality is they know their subject, but they don't have a plan. If you know how you're going to open, and if you know where you're going to take them, how you're going to end, how you're going to close, and you know your material, then you're fine. So have an opening, have a closing, and then let your natural abilities take over in the middle. So having this agenda lets you know how things are going to begin. And it lets you be in control. And now you can relax. And that's what people are buying, is your confidence. And so if you're winging it, if things are unsure, if there's no mutual agreement, then everybody's doing this dance and they don't know what's happening. So start there, get that, and then you'll be on my website. My social media is there, and my phone number. You can book a free 15-minute call, but start with that. Get the sales agenda, and then we can figure out where there's some gaps, where there's some issues, and we can start making some improvements.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, which I hope you did, make sure you subscribe so that you never miss what's next. If you really enjoyed it, I'd be super grateful if you could leave a review on iTunes or anywhere that you listen. And if you really enjoyed it, then I'd love if you'd share it with a friend. Last but not least, make sure you're following us on Instagram at The Vendor's Daughter for a behind-the-scenes look at my personal and professional life, and for what I hope is a little bit of daily inspiration as we walk this crazy journey together.